little short story. This was a little house in the hood, another little haunting story. First night we moved in, just me and the dog. Was there to do some unboxing and basically nothing but the dog and a TV and a DVD player and a mattress on the floor. Well, the funny thing was the panel box, everything was on except for the stove, and I thought that was a little odd, so I checked all the breakers, make sure everything was on, turned the stove on, and I come back through a couple hours later, all 4 burners are on, and the stove's on broil, everything's just blazing orange, just hot. And I thought, okay, that's a little weird, but, maybe I just, maybe I wasn't paying attention or something, right? So I cut all the dials off, go back through there, about another hour and a half, all the burners turned on wide open, high as they'll go. Stove's glowing red again. Never could figure that out. That's the only 2 times it ever happened, but when it happened that second time, I cut the breaker off for the rest of the night. Started out with little things like that. Then, our dogs would bark outside, our dogs would bark inside and point, go crazy. And started out with little things like that. And then it progressively, I guess, got worse and worse. So, like I said, it started out with the stove, then later on, when you get done cooking, there would be say the pots and pans would flip off the stove, or the spoon would flip out of a pot, 10, 15 feet in the middle of the kitchen floor, or a pan would be directly in the middle of the kitchen floor that would sit on top of the stove. That would keep happened quite a bit, and then we had times where we still had food on the stove from dinner, say green beans, for instance. There's one time I remember where we had green beans specifically as a side dish, and when I came back in the kitchen, there was little piles, as if somebody had picked up a little handful of green beans, and there was a pile of green beans in the center of each burner, a pile in the middle of the stove, and the spoon was flipped out and laying in the middle of the floor. Never could figure that out. It was like somebody had sprinkled 4 or 5 green beans on top of each burner, so that was a little weird. Like I said, it started out with small things, Okay, let's say it was a rat. It wasn't, but let's just say it was, okay? We'll move past that. Then it got to be where the dogs really started barking outside, and you would see, shadows and different things. The dogs would just froth at the mouth sometimes, barking at specific areas of the yard. Then we started having things move inside the house. I had a bunch of stuff I collected from the yard, and the dog scratched up little bits of colored glass and old axe heads and rasps. And I think there used to be a farrier or a blacksmith there because we found all kind of tools in the ground. Later on, white witches told me that I need to put those tools back in the ground because what they were attached to, what was attached to them, was either involved with killing animals or murder. They wasn't really clear on which, but they were adamant that I get rid of the stuff, except for the colored glass. And the apothecary bottles were fine, apparently, but the tools they wanted me to get rid of, which I hated to do, but I did do eventually, and things did calm down a little bit. But the apothecary bottles, I never did understand. They said the apothecary bottles were alright, but the apothecary bottles would move, right? So, I was getting out of the shower one day, and my girlfriend, she was in the bedroom watching TV or on the phone or something, and I almost stepped on 5 or 6 apothecary bottles that were there's a shelf, over to this side, and they're about 8 or 10 feet away. These apothecary bottles were piled up, like somebody had stacked them and placed them in such a way where the cork of one bottle was just barely touching another bottle and, leaned up against another bottle, but just barely touching it. And I just happened to look down when I got in the living room. I guess it's a good thing I did. If I hadn't, I would have stepped in a bunch of glass and probably ended up getting hurt. Then it went from, little things moving to my girlfriend started getting writing on the mirror. It would always say, "I love you," which is odd because that started happening on Lawsonville Avenue. back when I was young, we started getting writings on the mirrors and different little sketches and things that would disappear. And then when you come back and fog the mirror up, it's like nobody ever touched it, no sign of anything. So she started getting little messages on the mirror. And like once she took off her engagement ring, it's a silver ring, used to belong to me. I gave it to her, kind of until I could afford a nicer ring. But anyway, it's beside the point. She took it off to take a shower one night. When she got out, she was screaming at me, wanted to know why I had destroyed her ring. I didn't know what the fuck she was talking about. And turns out her ring had gotten squashed almost flat while she was in the bathroom with it sitting on the sink. I've got pictures of it somewhere. And she finally got to be terrified to be in the bathroom by herself. She wouldn't ever shut the door. She's even got an EVP where she just had her phone record while she was in the bathroom, because she always felt like somebody was in the bathroom with her. And there's this raggedy breathing. Sounds like an old woman. Gotta get close to the mic. Like kind of like a raspy breathing, like somebody's got COPD really bad. Then it gets right up on the microphone and goes, hello. But there's nobody in the bathroom but her. You can't hear her in the bathroom, but you hear this other voice and the breathing and stuff. And so she started getting messages. We started having jewelry get smashed by nothing, which is a little odd. We started to have fire jump out of the light sockets. She's claimed on a couple occasions that she's seen my face change and my eyes turn black. And I've seen the image of myself, the reflection in the front door. I did see my own reflection turn like gaunt. I don't know if I was just tired or what. Maybe I was just tired, but she swears up and down that it's happened to me several times. Then she starts getting scratched. She always got scratched in multiples of 3. And it happened in the bathroom often, on her back, like in the middle of her back where she couldn't reach. And then she started to get these bad thoughts about me, like she started to get like a voice inside of her head, like, telling her all this bad shit. But it only happened on this one house. It never happened anywhere else. And, like I said, things just got worse from there. I don't know. I think it was the land itself. There was an old dry well that was capped off. You dig down a few inches, you could get water. But there was all kind of things that went on at that house. And these are just a few of them. I'm sure I'll think on it some more, and I can probably come up with some more things. But it was just a real interesting little house. A little house on ridge, so to speak. House on the ridge. It was actually on ridge. But I don't know. Never did really understand what was happening there. There was definitely something on the land that was bad. Oh, that was something else. When I did rebury those tools, the White Witches, I did what they said, and I went the little extra mile and put salt in the ground with them. But as I was salting the property and moving around, that, of course, I got interrupted before I could finish the video out. Anyway, basically, I tried salting the property. I tried saging the house a couple times. Saging the house made it worse. Then I found out later, apparently the Indians used to use sage to call in spirits, not get rid of them. So I don't know why everybody seems to think that's a cleansing ritual, but kind of the opposite. But I would salt the property, and as I moved around the 4 corners of the property doing this, the wind picked up more and more and more, until by the time I got done, the trees are like doubling over with these great gusts of wind. And when I finally did put those tools in the ground, I salted them, put them all together. Probably go right back to them now and dig them back up. But a dark black cloud settled over that spot in the yard that afternoon when I put those tools back in the ground, and it stayed and stayed and stayed. Even into the night, that cloud was still there. It was gone by the next day, but it was just the oddest thing. It was like one little set of black clouds over that place in the ground. I always thought that was kind of weird. And of course, it's weird. But Beth just got harassed really bad at that particular house. It didn't bother me nearly as bad as it bothered her, but it just seemed to torment her. We used to be able to hear each other coming in and talking. Sometimes I would hear, like, say, her and my mom, or her and somebody else come in, hear the keys jingling, hear them come in, hear the bags rustling and everything. I think I don't know if it's the Netherlands, one of those Viking countries, they have something called a Vardoger, which is basically, it means somewhat like a spirit of somebody arrives before the actual person. I guess it's like kind of like a poltergeist or a bad spirit that's there to like basically just cause havoc. I think it's called the foregoer or something like that. Basically means it arrives back before the actual person does. But we used to have that all the time, like voices being mimicked and the sounds of people coming in that weren't there. And you hear somebody come in, you hear the bags rustling, hear them talking. You sit there 5 or 10 minutes, you never see anybody, you never hear anybody. You're like, well, I wonder what happened to them. You go in the kitchen, there's nobody there, you know. So there's just some of the things that happened on Ridge, but I guess I've had a history of these weird things happening. I'm sure there's probably a lot more that happens. I got a lot of pictures and video from there, amongst some other places, but yeah, that's one pretty interesting place. But fun to visit. Didn't really like living there all that much.